Hello, everybody. Jack Austin here with the Alter Ego Podcast with my co-host, Mr. Ryan. How you doing, buddy?
What's going on, man?
We are starting a brand new series here at the Alter Ego Podcast, the Versus series. We polled everybody out in the world, the entire world. Everybody answered. Don't look any further into that. And we were looking for interesting matchups, not necessarily Marvel versus Marvel, DC versus DC, or even Marvel versus DC. We were looking for interesting matchups, and you guys really delivered. So thank you so much for that. And we're going to try to do these fairly often, have at least two of our personalities from the show come on, and no bias. Each of us pick who it is, and then we have them metaphorically duke it out. We're going to discuss origins, powers if you don't know who they are. A lot of you might know who these two are. And then leave it up to you guys in the comment section to make a decision on who wins. So, that being
and make sure
said,
you keep them coming. Make sure you keep them coming, too. Alter Ego Pod on Twitter and Instagram, as well as the YouTube channel. You can leave comments on who you would like to see as a matchup.
and everything you're watching right now, or all the stuff that he's giving you, is scrolling on the bottom of the screen. So feel free to get at us right there, and we will make sure to make your matchup happen. So the first bout, period. The first bout. Two doctors, two learned men. Dr. Fate, obviously from the DC universe, and in recent media and in recent history, probably the much more popular Doctor Strange. Now, as we say on the show, we're not going to sit here and profess that we are the ultimate experts in these characters, and certainly what we say is not, it's just our opinion. So we're just trying to have a little fun with this. I personally don't know enough about Dr. Fate, so in this one, we're going to have Mr. Ryno take Dr. Fate, and I'm going to take everyone's favorite surgeon with lack of motion in his hands, Mr. Stephen Strange.
Doctor Strange is definitely the current favorite out of the two sorcerers, but a lot of people may not know this. Dr. Fate is one of the oldest comic book characters there is.
Yeah,
he's been around since the early 1940s, well before DC was established. So he's been around for quite a while.
That happens to be the case with a lot of folks, with a lot of characters right now that are being brought back into popularity. People are seeing them and they're going, "Who's this new guy?" And they don't know they've been around for a long time. Case in point, She-Hulk. Everybody was hating on her recently, and she's been around since the 80s. So
it was a huge focal point of a lot of the Avengers storylines too.
Yeah, yes, and probably will be going forward. Okay, so did you want to start first with Dr. Fate?
I'll kick us off, give a little who's who on Kent Nelson. Kent Nelson is the original Dr. Fate, arguably one of the most, if not the most powerful of the Dr. Fates. There have been several different incarnations of Dr. Fate in DC. He is widely regarded as the most powerful of the Dr. Fate characters. He acquired his powers while on a trip with his dad in, I believe it's pronounced Ur. It's modern-day Iraq in the Middle East, when he stumbled upon the tomb of Nabu the Wise, who was an ancient god billions of years old in the DC lore. And he acquired a couple different artifacts from Nabu and became one of the Lord of Order. That is how he acquired his powers.
Very nice. Very nice. And doesn't something about the helmet? Doesn't he the god live in the helmet or something like that?
So his spirit is within the helmet.
Right.
So when he puts on the helmet, yes, Nabu his spirit is in the his soul is in the helmet. So when he puts on the helmet, he actually becomes a vessel for Nabu. He channels his powers directly from Nabu.
Very nice. Very nice. And he's a pretty powerful character, if I'm not mistaken.
Definitely one of the heavy hitters in DC. He is by
far
the most powerful magic user.
Albeit underused.
Absolutely, especially in recent media. I mean, not a whole lot on the silver screen outside of Black Adam with him. He's been in a couple of different DC animated features. But yeah, he's one of the most powerful magic users in all of DC. He's actually, at one point, one of his powerful feats was knocking Superman unconscious with a punch.
Oh, that's nice.
So he's that level of.
You gotta love that, Tom. You gotta love it when you can knock out the old Kal-El with one punch right to the kisser. I think everybody's pretty familiar with Doctor Strange. A couple of interesting things. He was actually back in 1930 was when he was born. Very interesting. I didn't know he was that old. Obviously, comic wise, that's been redone for the movies and stuff like that. But Yeah.
I
Doctor
believe he uses
Strange.
magic just like Fate. He uses magic to keep himself young, doesn't he?
He does have that ability, and I did not know this, but I was reading it here, and he actually pulls his powers from 3 different entities,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was pretty cool. He does have infinite longevity and fearlessness because of the his connection with the Ancient One. So yes, he does do kind of the same thing that one did in the movies, and kind of that's what keeps him young and keeps him going. But the 3 gods that he, or deities, or whatever you want to call them, are the Vishanti, and they are the trinity of godly beings known as Agamotto, which Eye of Agamotto, which is what he has in the Time Stone, Hogoth, and Oshter. So on rare occasions, he has to call on the power of demons like Dormammu, as we've seen in the movie as well. So both of these dudes, kind of ordinary guys, although, Strange being a very popular neurosurgeon and you know what I mean, his kind of background in the medical industry, I think he had a little bit more going for him than Dr. Fate did. But in terms of powers, they're relatively equal.
Now, Dr. Fate, the main origin with Dr. Fate is that he is a archaeologist. He has his doctorate in archaeology. He's a very famous, not, I wouldn't say very famous, but a well-known archaeologist. There's other storylines where he's also a physician himself, not a surgeon, but just maybe a general practice doctor. He got his MD as well. So in terms of knowledge, in terms of I guess being a tactician, both of them are genius level intellect people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because we were talking about this, and I was doing just a little bit of research. As I said, I'm not the most well-read comic guy, but I did read on Marvel's website that they haven't actually a power grid out for these guys, and intelligence for Strange was a 4. Really shocked me. But when we kind of broke that down further, it's because, yeah, there are other guys out there in the MCU and the DCU that have so many facets, like Tony Stark, T'Challa, Reed Richards, all these guys, and Doctor Doom, that are all just genius level intellects because of so many facets that they pull from. But Strange is far from a slouch.
Oh God, no! Yeah, brilliant mind. I mean, he's a part of the Illuminati. The Illuminati was created for the smartest people on Earth,
right?
So he's definitely genius level, just probably not at the same level as some of the other guys in comic books.
Sure. So, I think in this scenario on the Versus style podcast, we've got to say that both of our characters know they're going to fight each other. They are set up for whatever reason they're going to fight, not good or evil, because I think not in a million years would either one of these guys fight each other unless it's one of those Illuminati situations or, a certain fate of the universe is at stake and then Dr. Fate steps up and intervenes. But these 2 guys, really good guys. There aren't really instances where they are evil unless there are nefarious things happening in the background. So generally, these 2 dudes aren't fighting.
No, I would say no to that. I mean, the only scenario where I could actually see them actually fight is if DC and Marvel were to decide to do another crossover event where, because of the mainstream media that they've appeared in the movies, you would probably have to see some sort of fight with them in the comic books in the future.
Sure. And I'll say this too, in terms of physicality, representing Doctor Strange, he's a guy. He's somebody that if you punch him, if you lay hands on him, you're going to do serious damage. So I think if this fight is going on, it's going to be a lot of the mystic arts and probably a lot of preparation spells for Doctor Strange.
Now, see, that's where the 2 men, just as men, that's where the 2 men differ. Now, throughout his 20 to 30 years of training with Naboo to become a sorcerer, his mental and physical abilities were at their peak, at peak human ability.
Yeah.
But when he dons the helmet, when he dons the magical artifacts that he actually has superhuman strength, comparatively speaking to guys like Superman and Spectre. Spectre even said that he was almost on the same level as him and Spectre. For those of you who may not know, Spectre is DC's equivalent to the Living Tribunal.
Right.
So you're talking about one of the all-time powerful guys. Now, obviously, that depends on the storyline you're reading. That depends on the artist and the writer that's writing it.
Right. And I was going to say, we're not ever going to compare any of these fights to their most powerful moments because that's one guy writing one story. This is a general fight. And I think that's if Strange has a detriment, if Strange has something that that he doesn't have going for him, it's that he does need to take that time to protect himself, whatever that may be. Because a physical fight for him is not going to work. He's going to need to do that multiplication and try to deceive fate, which is hard to do. Because I was just thinking about this, Dr. Fate being Dr. Fate, his ability to see into the future and all those kinds of abilities. And then you remember Endgame, where Doctor Strange has seen 14,470, whatever, however many
Yeah.
possibilities. So this fight could go on for 100 years. I easily think it could go on for that long, with both of these men being able to predict what the next one's going to do.
That's a very good point. Both of them have the ability to see into the future, but not only that, one of the artifacts that Doctor Fate wears, the Amulet of Anubis, it allows him to sense other magic users. So even if they weren't in the same room with each other,
Right.
Doctor Fate's going to see Doctor Strange coming a mile away,
Right.
and vice versa. With the Eye of Agamotto, Strange
Right.
is going to see Fate coming a mile away too.
Not to mention, if we're talking the Time Stone Eye of Agamotto, that's a serious boon for Doctor Strange. But at the same time, it's gonna take a lot. If I'm
Yeah.
looking at this fight, I say Doctor Fate has a serious advantage. Not that Strange isn't strong enough or doesn't have the capabilities, but the amount of power and stuff that he would need to call upon to contend in a quick fashion would be tough.
I think if you're speaking purely on a magical level,
Yeah,
casting spells, using your powers, they're almost equal. Both of them are widely regarded as the most powerful magic users in their universe. Doctor Fate
sure.
being DC, Doctor Strange being Marvel, widely regarded. I mean, one's the Sorcerer Supreme, the other one is Lord of Order. I think I can't imagine that this would come down to a physical contest, because
Right.
it would be lights out for Doctor Strange within minutes. Doctor
Yeah,
Strange
and
is going to keep his distance. He's gonna keep some distance between him and Fate, so he doesn't allow Fate to put hands on him.
so let's do it like this. Let's make 3 categories, shall we?
Okay. All
Let's
right.
do hand to hand. Obviously, that's going to Doctor Fate. In
Yep.
terms of spell casting and abilities, who are you giving it to?
Spellcasting and abilities, I have to give it to Doctor Fate, and here's the reason why. The difference between the two sorcerers is Doctor Strange had to learn and he had to master every single power that he has.
Mm,
Doctor Fate didn't have to do that, because whenever he puts the helmet on, he's virtually not, now he's not actually, but he's virtually turning into Naboo. He
sure.
channels all of his power directly from Naboo through the helmet. Not only that, but the amulets that he wears, I believe they're called the Amulet of Anubis, they heighten his magical ability, even more so than just the helmet. So the difference between the two is, I mean, you could have a scenario where Strange might be trying to cast a spell that he's not used to casting, or maybe hasn't mastered the art of. He might be trying to cut corners and he might make a mistake. Whereas Fate is going to do exactly what Naboo wants him to do. He's going to do exactly what he needs to do. And I think he's going to have pinpoint precision with his spell casting.
Mm. I think there's a bit of a thing that Doctor Strange has over Doctor Fate, and that's his ability to go in between dimensions and have the time manipulation and the elemental manipulation. He can manipulate literally everything around him. So
Yeah.
that could be one thing that Strange really has going for him, is his ability to not only get away and have a little self preservation, but he's also banished several people in his time. So Strange, with the right moves, if he banishes Naboo, then he's got the upper hand there. I mean, I don't know. I think it's easier to get Dr. Fate to not be Dr. Fate anymore than it is to take Doctor Strange away from Doctor Strange.
Well, that is one of Fate's biggest weaknesses, is if he loses the helmet, he is far less powerful than Doctor Strange is. He still has some magical abilities. He still has invulnerability. He can fly somewhat without the helmet on, but he is far less powerful. He's not a true sorcerer without the helmet. The helmet, it's called the Helmet of Fate. So without that helmet, if Strange could find a way to remove the helmet from Fate, then it's game over. Fate's done with. The only problem with that is Fate also has a cloak similar to Strange's. It's called the Cloak of Destiny.
Yeah. Not the Cloak of Levitation, which I was thinking about for Strange.
That's Strange is the one that Fate wears is the Cloak of Destiny, and that one actually makes Fate somewhat immune to magic. Now, it's not entirely immune to magic, and I think Strange would be smart enough to find a way around that. But that is the one true weakness that Fate has. When he's disconnected from that helmet, far less powerful than he is with the helmet on.
Then you know what? In that scenario, I'm going to give the edge to Strange. I really am, because I think in terms of being in that fight and getting in there and using the abilities like he has, because I mean, let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of the big people that these guys have fought, right? I mean, Strange has taken on Dormammu, which is a
He
pretty,
fought Thanos to almost a standstill as well in the MCU, of course.
I mean, that's saying a lot. Now,
Yeah.
I mean, clearly he knows his spatial awareness. He knows what spells he needs. And if he has the ability to get the helmet off, yeah, I'm going with Doctor Strange. I'm a little biased. I know currently that Strange is at a disadvantage in this fight. But that's something that's actually an excellent point that you bring up about Thanos. He had what? An hour to get ready for Thanos?
Yeah.
Not to mention he had a lot of help, but
Yeah.
he also gave him a lot of trouble for a little while.
Well, that a lot of trouble he gave him was actually in a one-on-one scenario when everyone else was knocked out.
Right.
I mean, they did go toe to toe, and I thoroughly believe in that particular scenario. Of course, not the comics, not any other storylines that you could think of. In that particular scenario in the MCU, Thanos versus Doctor Strange. If Thanos doesn't have the stones, I think Doctor Strange wins that.
Doctor Strange wins, yeah.
Yeah, I think he finds a way to neutralize him.
If he doesn't have the gauntlet, then Strange is definitely at his best right there.
Yeah, 100%.
If you remember in the Endgame fight, Strange is saving everyone's life the whole time. That's why he's not out there on the battlefield, is he's stopping that flood from coming in.
Yep, stopping the flood, helping fight the minions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He never had that one-on-one moment or that main fight moment in Endgame.
Right.
But that also there might be a reason for that too, though. He did see into the future. He did see what it took in order to defeat Thanos. He may have been doing everything necessary in order to keep that vision alive.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, if it comes to hand with powers, it's going to Dr. Fate. If it's coming to just spell casting, I'm giving the edge to Doctor Strange.
I, of course, am giving the edge to Dr. Fate.
Yeah. In the overall, it's too much to tell. There's too many variables to go in and say, yeah, for sure, this guy's going to win. Depends on who's writing the story. But what do you guys think out there in YouTube land? Who do you have winning this fight? I think most comic book aficionados, people that know comics really, really well, are going to look at this instantly and go, Dr. Fate. But I think Strange has gained a lot of popularity. And when this kind of thing happens, typically that trickles over into the comic world. Right?
It does.
What happens in the MCU starts to go over into those stories, because that's the way you get the average person to go in and read. So I feel like we're going to see a pretty big uptick in Strange's popularity and maybe even power.
I think the same can be said about Dr. Fate.
Yeah.
With this new reset that DC is doing, I think you're going to see a lot more Fate in comics, a lot more solo stories,
a lot more Pierce Brosnan.
Oh, I wouldn't mind that. I love Pierce Brosnan. I thought he did a phenomenal job as Fate. That was the one shining moment, not only of that entire movie, but I think, in my personal opinion, that Dr. Fate has probably been one of the best portrayed DC characters in all of DCU so far.
Yeah. I don't disagree. And Doctor Strange, honestly, has been the most visually amazing superhero. Thor 1 I thought really set the bar really high, and then Doctor Strange came out and it was kind of all over.
Yeah, hands down, definitely the best visuals so far, I think, especially with the Multiverse of Madness. I mean, that was just visually stunning for the MCU.
So how about this? MCU, DCU, those two versions going after each other. Who do you have in that fight?
I still take Fate. Fate, he fought Black Adam to a standstill. He fought the demon at the end of Black Adam. He fought him to a standstill.
Hawkman fought him. Demon killed him.
Well, no, Fate still fought him. Fate fought him until Hawkman got in. But not only was he fighting him, he was also talking to Black Adam to try and free him from that underwater prison.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this is a really, really tough one. But, who knows? It's up to you guys. Who do you think wins? You give it to Doctor Strange, you give it to Dr. Fate. Tell us in the comments, and we will see you in the next one.